The wedding schedule slid across my mother's tablecloth and stopped against my fork, and two names on it had been crossed out in blue ballpoint. My husband's, my daughter's, not erased, crossed out, two clean lines each, the way you cancel an appointment that never mattered. June was sitting 3 feet away at the end of the table, tongue between her teeth, coloring a card that said, "Congratulations, Uncle Grant," in orange marker. She'd been working on it all week. She spelled it wrong, and I hadn't corrected her because she was so proud of the banner she drew under it. My mother tapped the schedule with one manicured nail. "Caleb and June didn't make the final list, sweetheart. Elise's people are polished. Old firm money, country club, that whole world." She smiled the smile she uses on caterers. "Your little family is a different flavor. You understand." "Oh, and you'll bring your camera, of course." Golden hour starts at 7. The dining room smelled like her lemon roast chicken, and the gardenia candle she only lights for company. My brother Tyler spun his new key fob on the tablecloth, a black fob with a chrome ring, some paid-off glossy thing parked out front, and didn't look up from his phone. My father studied his water glass like it had a screen in it, and at the far end of the table, Elise, the bride, 30 years old, and silent all evening, folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. Grant himself was 2 towns over, closing a work dinner, which was how my mother preferred it. The groom attends the wedding, the details belong to her, so Elise had come alone. My thumb found the worn spot on my camera strap, the place where the leather's gone soft after 17 years. I pressed it until my nail went white, because here is what that table looked like if you were me. My mother had a $200 centerpiece and a schedule that used me as free labor. My little brother had a new car nobody explained. My 6-year-old was drawing a congratulations card for a wedding she had just been cut from. She didn't know yet. She was still coloring. And the man who taught her to ride a bike without training wheels wasn't polished enough to sit in a folding chair and watch my brother get married. I didn't stand up. I didn't raise my voice. June looks up when voices go sharp. She reads rooms the way other kids read cereal boxes, and I was not going to teach my daughter what begging looks like at her grandmother's table. So I said the only thing I had left. "I only shoot for clients, Mom." My mother laughed like I'd told a light little joke. Tyler snorted. My father cleared his throat at his water. They thought that was the end of it. A snip of attitude from the daughter who always folds. None of them knew that in 5 weeks, a judge in a probate courtroom would read one of those crossed-out names out loud, into the record, my daughter's, while the other one sat beside me in the second row. None of them knew what a bank freeze was about to do to a July wedding. That night, neither did I. I'm Andrea, by the way. I'm 29. I take pictures of other people's families for a living, and if you have ever been the free labor at your own family's table, the one who shows up, sets up, and gets cropped out, tell me where you're listening from tonight, and stay with me, because you deserve to hear what a quiet person's no can do. Back to the chicken. My mother had moved on to place cards, fonts, whether the string quartet should play before or after the toasts. Her voice filled the room the way it always has, wall to wall, no gaps for anyone else. I cut June's chicken into small pieces. My hands were very steady. That's a thing that happens to me. The angrier I am, the steadier my hands get. It's why I'm good at my job. And then Elise spoke for the first time in 2 hours. She didn't raise her voice either. That's the thing I'll never forget. She set down the napkin she'd folded into a square the size of a matchbook, looked at my mother, and said, "Tell her why the names are really crossed out, Diane. Or I will." The gardenia candle popped. That's how quiet it got. I heard the wick. My mother's fork stopped in the air. Just for a second. If you weren't watching her hands, you'd have missed it. But I watch hands for a living. The fork stopped, and then it came down on the plate with a small porcelain click, and she said, "Elise, honey, we're all tired." "I'm not tired," Elise said. Nobody at that table breathed. Tyler had gone still over his phone. My father's ears were turning red, top to bottom, like a glass filling. My mother stood, smoothed her blouse, and announced that she had a lemon tart, and that this conversation was over because there were children present. She said it. Children present, with her hand gesturing at June. The child she'd crossed off a list 11 minutes earlier was now the reason for decorum. Dessert happened. I couldn't tell you what it tasted like. We left at 8:40. I was buckling June into her booster seat, her orange congratulations card in her lap, when I heard heels on the driveway behind me. Elise. Arms crossed against the June evening, glancing back at the house once, the porch light catching the little diamond studs in her ears. I shouldn't do this here, she said. Then she reached into her bag and did it anyway. She handed me a folded photocopy. One page, a wire transfer receipt dated the 18th of January. $38,000 into Grant's account. And on the memo line, in bank print, 7 words that rearranged my entire life. Hail Fam Trust, FBO June E. Linden. Hail my grandmother's name, FBO, for the benefit of June's Trust. My daughter's money, wired to my brother, 5 months ago, as a quote-unquote gift. That's the down payment on their house, Elise said quietly. It came up in our financial disclosure. I'm a CPA, Andrea. I asked your mother about it, and she patted my arm and told me it was family money and all arranged. She looked back at the house again. The names on that schedule aren't crossed out because your husband wears work boots. She left me standing in the driveway with a page in my hand and my daughter humming in the car. And here's the question that kept me up until 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling fan. If 38,000 of June's money bought Grant a house, what paid for everything else? I found the first piece of the answer in my own junk drawer. But you need to understand what that trust was, what she was. Because the woman who left that money spent 17 years teaching me to see, and everything that happened this summer started with her. My grandmother, Adele Hale, gave me my first camera when I was 12. A dented secondhand Canon with a strap that smelled like her hand lotion. She was my mother's mother, and she was nothing like my mother. Diane fills a room. Adele noticed one. She'd sit at family parties in a lawn chair with iced tea and murmur, "Look at your uncle checking his watch. Look at your cousin's fake laugh. The camera doesn't care what people say, Andrea. It cares what they do." I shot my first wedding at 19 for gas money. By 23, it was my business. And from the very first Thanksgiving after I bought a real lens, my family's invitations changed shape. Bring your camera became a sentence attached to every single one. Grant's college graduation, Tyler's birthdays, my parents' 30th anniversary, where I shot for 6 hours and 8 standing up. I have photographed 11 years of this family's milestones, and if you flip through every album from a decade of holidays, you will find me in almost none of them. The person holding the camera doesn't appear in pictures. It took me an embarrassingly long time to notice my family preferred it that way. Caleb noticed on our second date. I told him what I did, and he asked to see my favorite photo of myself, and I didn't have one that wasn't a passport picture. He's a mechanic. Foreign transmissions, mostly. Forearms, like dock rope. Reads thick paperback histories of naval battles at our kitchen table. My mother has introduced him to her friends as Andrea's husband. He's very good with his hands, in a tone that could strip paint. He carried Adele's air conditioner up her stairs every May and down every October, and she adored him. That one, she told me at my own wedding, watches you walk across a room like you're the news. Adele died in November of 2023, 84. Her heart, in her sleep, iced tea glass, washed and upside down in the drainer. And at the reading of her will in a lawyer's office with bad coffee, we learned that my grandmother had left $112,000 in trust, not to my mother, not split among the grandchildren, to June, her great-granddaughter, for her education and her benefit until she turned 21. I remember the exact sound my mother made. A small intake through the nose, the sound of a woman being publicly informed of her ranking. The trustee my grandmother named was Diane, her own daughter. The organized one, the local one, the one with the label maker. The lawyer, a calm woman named Carol Bennett, explained that the trustee would manage the funds and file an accounting every year. My mother dabbed one eye and said what an honor it was that mother had trusted her with this. And I believed, because it never occurred to me not to, that the money was just sitting there, growing quietly, waiting for June. For 2.5 years I believed that. The envelope should have told me. This past Easter, early April, 2.5 months before that dinner, a piece of mail showed up at our place, misdelivered, my mother's trust statement, with a coffee ring stamped on the corner, like the mailman had used it as a coaster. Hail Family Trust, Q1 statement. Caleb dropped it off at Sunday dinner, easy as anything, and asked friendly, in front of everyone, "Hey Diane, June's trust statements, you keep those somewhere safe? Might be good for Andrea to have copies for her files." My mother took that envelope the way you'd take a wasp off a child's sleeve. Slow. Both eyes on it. "Of course," she said, "it's all handled." 11 weeks later, a schedule slid across a tablecloth, and my husband and daughter had 2 blue lines through their names. At 1 in the morning, after that dinner, I stood in my kitchen, with Elise's photocopy flat on the counter, next to the junk drawer where I'd tossed the only other piece of trust mail we'd ever gotten, the annual notice with Bennett's letterhead on it. Carol Bennett, attorney for the estate of Adele Hale. Office number, 9 to 5. Caleb came down at some point and stood behind me, read the wire receipt over my shoulder, and was quiet for a long time. "They didn't cross me off that list because of my boots," he said finally. "No," I said, "I think you asked about the statements." June's nightlight hummed upstairs. $38,000, and a question with a dollar sign on it, hanging over my mother's house like weather. What else had the Hale Family Trust paid for? Monday morning at 9:02, I called Carol Bennett's office. What she told me before I'd even finished my sentence, I had to sit down on the kitchen floor. "Mrs. Linden," Carol Bennett said, "I want to be careful how I say this." Papers moved on her end. "I have sent your mother 3 written requests since January for the trust's annual accounting. Certified mail. She has not produced it." I slid down the cabinet until I was sitting on my kitchen floor, phone against my ear, coffee going cold on the counter above me. "Is that normal?" I asked. "To just not?" "It is not normal," she said. "It is also not legal, indefinitely. A trustee has a duty to account. When my January letter got no response, I assumed disorganization. When my April letter got no response, I stopped assuming." A pause, the specific pause of a lawyer, deciding how much to hand you. "Your grandmother was my client for 19 years, Mrs. Linden. She sat in my office and told me exactly what that money was for. May I ask what prompted your call?" I looked at the photocopy on the counter above me. Steady hands. I read her every word on the memo line, and the date and the amount. The silence on that phone had a texture to it. "That," Bennett said finally, "is not an educational expense for a 6-year-old. Here is what I can do." And her voice changed. Shifted into gear is the only way I can describe it. As the beneficiary's parent, I had standing. She could petition the probate court to compel a full accounting and, given an unexplained $38,000 outflow, ask the court to freeze the trust's accounts, and any account trust money could be traced into, while it looked. "One thing you should know," she added. "Petitions become public record, and freezes are loud. Banks don't do subtle. Whatever your mother has planned for that money next, a freeze stops it mid-motion. Families feel that. How fast can it be loud? With this receipt, I can file within the week." I didn't say yes that Monday. I want to be honest about that, because it matters for everything that comes after. I said, "Send me what you'd file, and give me a few days." I had a brother getting married in 4 weeks. I had a mother who had not yet been asked a single direct question by me. Some part of me, the part raised at that table, was still holding the door open for an explanation. An arrangement I didn't know about. A repayment plan with paperwork? Bennett said something before she hung up that I wrote on the back of an envelope and kept. Mrs. Linden, in 19 years of this work, I have learned one thing about money and family. The explanation is almost never better than the receipt. 3 days later, my mother came to me. She'd heard I'd called Bennett. The legal world is small in a town like ours. Or maybe Bennett's office sent a copy of something. I never found out. And she showed up on my porch at 10 in the morning, holding a white bakery box like a passport. Almond croissants. She hates almond croissants. They're my favorite. She sat at my kitchen table, the table Caleb built in the house that wasn't polished enough. And she talked for 40 minutes. I'm going to give you the short version, because I lived the long one, and nobody should have to. The trust, she explained, was family money. Mother had gotten sentimental at the end. You know how she was, Andrea? Taken with the baby, not thinking structurally. Structurally, the family had needs now. Grant was starting his life. A house in this market? You have no idea. And the wedding wasn't for her, sweetheart. It was for all of us. A family's standing lives in these moments. And Elise's people expected a certain, she used the word caliber. June's education was years away, and there would always be money by then. Money moves, money comes back. That's what money does. I want you to notice, as I finally did, what was missing from those 40 minutes. An apology, a number, or one single sentence that began with the words, June's money. Then she opened her handbag and took out a manila folder, and the temperature of the visit changed. Since you're suddenly so interested in documents, she said, warm as a nurse with a needle, we may as well tidy the file. Bennett's gotten fussy in her old age. A single page, laser printed. Acknowledgement of family distributions. One paragraph of legalese saying that I, Andrea Linden, parent of the beneficiary, acknowledged and approved certain distributions from the Hale Family Trust for family purposes. With a signature line at the bottom, and next to it, a date line that had already been filled in. October 11, 2024, 20 months ago. She'd predated it. Printed it fresh this week, I could smell the toner, and dated it 20 months back, and set it next to a bakery box in my kitchen with a pen on top of it. Sign that, she said, and June's name goes back on the list. Caleb's too if you want. We'll get the calligrapher to redo the cards. It'll be like none of this ever happened. I looked at that pen, and I understood two things at the same time, and the floor moved under both of them. 1. My mother was not tidying a file. You do not need a 20-month-old signature from me unless something 20 months old is wrong, something with my name on it. 2. My daughter's seat at a family wedding had an asking price, and my mother had just named it. The price was my signature on a lie. I stood up. I took the page off my table. I did it slowly because my hands wanted to shake, and I wouldn't let them. And I fed it back into the flap of her handbag. June's name isn't for sale, Mom. My mother's face did something I'd only seen once before, at the reading of Adele's will. The smile stayed. Everything behind it left. You have no idea, she said, picking up her bakery box. Taking it with her, actually taking the croissants. What I have carried for this family. She was at the door when I called Bennett. Not after she left, while she could still hear me through the screen. Not to wound her, I've replayed it, and I'll stand by this. But because I wanted no ambiguity anywhere in my house ever again. Ms. Bennett, it's Andrea Linden. File it. Through the window, I watched my mother walk to her car, spine straight as a fence post, and sit behind the wheel for 4 full minutes without starting the engine. That was Thursday, the 25th of June. The petition went in on Tuesday the 30th, and while it worked its way through a courthouse, while a clerk stamped it and a judge read it and a bank compliance office woke up, my family went right on planning a wedding on my daughter's money, because none of them knew yet. I need to tell you about June's jar. This is the part I'd skip if I were making it easier on myself. My daughter is 6, and 6-year-olds are listening even when you spell things out or turn the radio up. Somewhere in those weeks she caught pieces. The word list. The words not going. Her flower girl dress hanging on her closet door in its plastic sleeve. Lavender, bought back in March, when she was still in the wedding party, before 2 lines of blue ballpoint. She'd asked me in April if she could try it on, and I'd said, let's keep it nice for the big day. She hadn't asked since. Kids don't re-ask, they conclude. The Tuesday the petition was filed, I found her on her bedroom floor with her butterfly bank, a mason jar with felt wings glued on, June's savings in my handwriting on tape, counting change into towers, tongue between her teeth, deadly serious. I have $31.40, she reported, plus the tooth fairy on Friday probably. That's a lot of money, Bug. What's it for? She didn't look up. She was straightening a tower of quarters that did not need straightening, and she said, in her play-it-cool voice, the one that's an octave lower than her real one, is it enough to buy tickets to Uncle Grant's wedding? Quarter. 'Cause I heard Grandma tell you we're not on the list, and at the movies when you're not on the list, you have to buy the tickets. I sat down on the floor of my daughter's bedroom, next to a jar of quarters she'd been saving to buy her way back into her own family, and for the first time in this whole thing, my hands were not steady at all. I told her the wedding had grown-up problems in it, that none of them, not one, was her fault, and that our summer was going to have a lake in it either way. She nodded the way kids nod when they're shelving something to think about later, and went back to her towers. At the door I looked back. She'd stopped counting. She was looking at the lavender dress on the closet door. Mama, she said, if Grandma's mad at us, is it 'cause of me? There are questions you answer, and there are questions you spend a summer answering. I got the first kind out of my mouth. No, baby, never, not for 1 second. And she accepted it the way she accepts sunscreen, tolerating the application, unconvinced. I closed her door and stood in the hallway with my back against the wall, and I understood that my mother was no longer the point. Being right was not the point. The point was 6 years old, and counting quarters into a butterfly jar 2 doors down. I didn't want an apology anymore. I wanted the accounting, and 40 miles away, in a bank compliance office none of us had ever seen, a court order was about to land on a desk. 4 days before my mother's final payment appointments, in the most expensive week of her life. The petition was served on my mother on Wednesday, the 1st of July at 11:40 in the morning. By 11:52, my phone was a slot machine. Grant first. I let it ring out, then Tyler, twice. Then a text from Grant that I will quote in full, because I think it says everything about the operating system my family runs on. Whatever this is about, can it wait until after the wedding? Mom is crying, you're stressing everyone out. Whatever this is about. My brother had $38,000 of my daughter's money, holding up his mortgage. And the story inside that house was that I was stressing everyone out. Caleb read the text over my shoulder at dinner and set down his fork. Notice nobody's asked you a question, he said. 4 calls, 6 texts. Not one question mark. That's actually a question. He was right. There was how. Do you know what you're doing to her? Punctuation as decoration. Nobody asked what the petition said. You don't ask questions you already know the answers to. My father called at 9 that night. I answered that one because he never calls. 61 years old, and on the phone he sounded like a man reading a note someone else had written. Your mother is beside herself. Family handles things in the family. Then, quieter, like it had slipped loose from the script, she said you'd understand once the wedding's done. That she was always going to make it right after. After what, Dad? With what? Ice in a glass. A TV murmuring somewhere in my childhood home. Good night, Andrea. He hung up, and I sat there understanding something I'd have paid money not to understand. He hadn't said she didn't take it. 20 minutes of loyalty, and not one sentence of it was she didn't do this. The voicemail came 2 days later. Friday afternoon, the 3rd of July. I want to be precise about how this happened. because precision is all that kept me sane. My phone was on the kitchen counter, face up. June was at the table with her markers. The phone buzzed, showed Mom, and I let it go to voicemail. And then, 30 seconds later, the voicemail transcription failed, and the audio started auto-playing on speaker. Because my phone does that, and I have never once fixed it. Except it wasn't a message for me. It was a pocket dial. Rustle of a handbag, a car door, and then my mother's voice. Tinny and bright, mid-conversation with somebody. Grant, from the shape of the pauses. Half a sentence of venue talk. And then, well, she's made her little point, hasn't she? No, no, absolutely not. That's final. If Andrea's child is there, people will ask about mother's money. Carol Bennett has half the town's ear as it is. One look at that girl, and it's questions all the way down. I am not letting a 6-year-old undo my wedding, Grant. I have worked too. I got to the phone. I killed it. 20 seconds. I counted them later, replaying it in my head, doing the math on exactly what my daughter heard, at the table, with a green marker in her hand. June didn't say anything. That's the part I need you to sit with. She didn't cry, didn't ask what Grandma meant. She capped the green marker. She looked at her paper for a second, and then she kept coloring, smaller now, up in the corner of the page, and the room was so quiet I could hear the felt tip. That night after her bath, I stepped on the pedal of the kitchen trash can to scrape a plate, and there it was, folded once, face down between a cereal box and the coffee grounds. Congratulations, Uncle Grant. Orange letters, a banner drawn with a ruler, because she wanted the lines straight. She'd thrown it away herself, quietly, sometime between the marker and the bath, and she hadn't told me, because at 6 years old, my daughter was already learning the family art of protecting people from what she felt. I stood over that trash can for a long time. Understand, I had a petition in. Lawyers were moving. On paper, I was doing everything a person could do. But paper is slow, and this wasn't on paper anymore. It was an orange marker in my garbage. My mother had said in 11 accidental seconds what she was. A woman who would erase a child. My child. From her own wedding. From the family record. To keep the questions away from the money. I took the card out of the trash. I flattened it with the side of my hand. I put it in my desk drawer, under the lens cloths where it still is. Then I called Bennett's after-hours line, and this time there was no part of me holding a door open. Ms. Bennett, Andrea Linden. The petition. I want to add removal. I don't want an explanation from the trustee anymore. I want a new trustee. A breath. And when we're in front of the judge, I want June's name said correctly, and I want it on the record whose benefit that trust is for. That, Bennett said, will not be a problem. One more thing before Monday came. Sunday night, I sent the only message my family got from me that week. Group thread. My mother, my father, both brothers. 7 words. Find a photographer. I'm not available. Oh, Tyler replied with a laughing emoji. Hold on to that emoji. We'll come back to it. Because here is what none of them knew. While that emoji was landing, Bennett had walked my petition in with the wire receipt stapled to it, and a probate judge had read the memo line, FBO June E. Linden, and signed a temporary order the same afternoon. And when a judge signs a freeze, it doesn't go to your house first. It goes to the bank. My mother's final payment week. Dress balance, venue balance, florist, the string quartet, all of it stacked into the second week of July like a debutante's calendar. Started Monday morning. The freeze had been on the account since Thursday. She found out on Wednesday, at Meridian Bridal, in a fitting room with champagne carpet, in front of the seamstress, the shop owner, and 2 of Elise's bridesmaids. I wasn't there. I've had it described to me 3 times. Twice by Elise, once, months later, and much smaller, by my father. The mother of the groom dress was steel blue, and the balance on it was $960. And my mother handed over her card at the front counter, the way she does everything public. Performing it. telling the shop owner about the quartet, while the machine did its little think. Declined, she laughed. Ran it again. Declined. Different card. The joint account, the one fed monthly, from what I now knew was June's inheritance. Declined. Restricted. See your branch. And my mother stood at that counter, in front of the polished people, saying the words, bank error, saying run it again, louder each time, while a 19-year-old shop assistant looked at a screen and said, with no idea she was pronouncing a verdict, "Ma'am, it says account frozen." Elise told me the sound of it later. Not the panic, the pivot. Diane snapped her purse shut and announced to the room, airily, that the bank had been sloppy all month and heads would roll, and she swept out with the dress still hanging in the fitting room like a shed skin. Then she sat in her car in the strip mall parking lot. Alone, Elise watched from the window for 19 minutes. Here's what I want you to understand about those 19 minutes. My mother was not confused. A woman who has been ignoring certified letters from an estate attorney since January. A woman who prints a backdated acknowledgement and pushes it across her daughter's kitchen table with a pen. That woman knows exactly what a frozen account means, and exactly which envelope on her hall table she has been refusing to open. What she was doing in that car for 19 minutes was arithmetic, counting what was already spent, what was left, what was exposed. Somewhere in that math lived a number she could not make behave. From that Wednesday on, you and I know something my family didn't. So let me say it plainly, the way I finally let myself think it. The money was gone. Not borrowed, not resting. Gone. And the proof of where it went was about to be pulled, statement by statement, out of a bank's records department by court order and stacked on a conference table in Carol Bennett's office. They scheduled me to come in and review the file on Monday, the 13th of July. 5 days before the wedding date, on those beautiful letterpress invitations, Bennett met me at the door of the conference room, and before she opened it, she stopped, which she had never done, and said, "Before you sit down, there are 6 documents in there you need to see first, and I need you to look at them very carefully before you answer any questions." 6 documents, on the table, in a row, fanned out like a card trick. 6 signatures, all of them mine, except I had never seen a single one of those pages in my life. They were called distribution reimbursement acknowledgments. 6 pages, 6 dates, spread across 20 months. Each one said, in one dense paragraph, that funds had been distributed from the Hale Family Trust for the benefit of the minor beneficiary, June E. Linden, tutoring, enrichment, medical, educational materials, and that the receipt of said funds was acknowledged by the beneficiary's parent. Signed, Andrea Linden, Andrea Linden, Andrea Linden, 6 times. "Is this your signature?" Bennett asked. Formal now, careful, a paralegal in the corner taking notes. "No. Any of them. No. Here's the thing about being a photographer. I've watched hands sign contracts at 300 weddings. And I've gotten 17 years of birthday cards from my mother, everyone signed in that upright finishing school cursive, the O's closed tight as coin slots. Whoever forged my name had tried to slope it, casual it down, but an O is a habit, and hers were sitting on those 6 lines, like fingerprints. I didn't say that part out loud. I didn't have to. Bennett laid the bank's certified statement summary next to the forms, and the statement said it without anyone's handwriting mattering at all. Opening balance March 2024, once probate cleared and the trust was funded, $112,000. Balance as of the freeze, July 2026, 9,400. I heard my own pulse. Bennett gave me the itemization, 1 line at a time. She'd had a day with it already. She took me through it slow, the way you walk someone across ice. June 2025, $14,000, cashier's check. It matched to the dollar the purchase price of a certain glossy black coupe with a chrome-ringed key fob that had been spinning on my mother's tablecloth for a year. My little brother's car, My daughter's money. The laughing emoji drove to work every morning on June's college fund. January 2026, the 38,000 to Grant. The house. We knew that one. February through June 2026. $41,000 across 11 transfers to a checking account. And out of that checking account, venue deposits, Meridian Bridal, a florist, a calligrapher, a string quartet's retainer. The wedding. The polished, refined, certain caliber wedding my family wasn't good enough for. My daughter had been crossed off the list of a party she was paying for. I'm going to let that sentence sit alone, because for about a minute in that conference room, I couldn't do anything but sit alone with it either. And the last line, 9,600 in small reimbursements over 20 months, the 6 forged forms, the tutoring June never got, enrichment she never saw, cash that walked, the tidy ones, the ones that needed my signature, because a trustee reimbursing herself needs someone to have received something. My mother hadn't just taken the money. She'd built me into the paperwork as the person who took it. I want to be clear about what happens next, Bennett said, because from here, very little of it requires you. She counted it off, flat as a recipe. The accounting goes before the judge. The signatures, since I disavowed them, get a forensic document examiner, paid for by the trust, standard procedure. Removal of trustee moves from likely to near certain. The court orders repayment, surcharge, it's called, an ugly, beautiful word, against the trustee personally. And forged instruments used to move trust funds, she finished. Stop being a family matter. The court can refer that. So can the bank. I need you to be ready for the fact that this may leave probate. Leave it for where? The district attorney's office. The paralegal's pen stopped. The air conditioner ticked. And I thought, not with joy, I want that on the record. Not with joy, but with a kind of vertigo. Of my mother at her lemon roast table saying, "Your little family is a different flavor." One more thing, Bennett said, pulling a thin envelope from the back of the file. This isn't legal. It's personal. Your grandmother left letters in my safe. She had me hold a few, with instructions. This one's marked for you, but her note says I'm to give it to you. She checked the line. When the trust business is finished, and not one day before. Adele was specific. A small, dry smile. She usually was. An envelope. My name on it in my grandmother's hand. That backward-leaning, left-handed scrawl. Sitting in a lawyer's safe for 2.5 years, waiting for a day my grandmother had somehow known to plan for. It's not finished, I said. No, Bennett agreed, putting it back. Not yet. I drove home with the radio off, and I did the thing I'd been refusing to do for 3 weeks. I called Elise. She answered on the first ring, from a stairwell by the sound of it, wind or ventilation humming. I said I'd been to Bennett's. I said the number out loud, 102,600, and heard her breathe it in. I knew it was bad, she said. I didn't know it was all of it. And then Elise Whitmore, CPA, the polished people's daughter, the woman whose wedding was 5 days out, said, I have a folder. Every disclosure document Grant gave me, the gift letter your mother wrote for the mortgage, texts where I asked her about the trust, and she called it Mother's Little Fund. I've been keeping it since March, and I've been telling myself it was due diligence. A laugh with nothing in it. It wasn't due diligence, Andrea. It was evidence. I just wasn't ready to call it that. It's yours. Bennett's. Whoever's. I should have given it to you the night in the driveway. Why didn't you? She was quiet for a second. Because I'd already bought the dress, she said. You can lose a whole year to a dress. Another pause. I need to talk to Grant, tonight. He gets one chance to be the man I RSVP'd for. I want to tell you my brother took his chance. What happened instead I got from Elise afterward, in pieces, because she came to our house when it was over, and sat at Caleb's table, and told it with her left hand, flat on the placemat in front of her. A pale, untanned stripe where the ring had been. She'd laid it out for Grant that night, all of it. The memo line, the freeze, the forged forms she'd now heard about, the fact that his house money was a 6-year-old's inheritance. And she asked him for one thing, not to testify, not to torch his mother. Just say you'll give it back. Say we'll unwind the gift, tell the lender the truth, start clean. Say it, and I'll marry you in a courthouse Friday, and never mention the venue again. My brother looked at the woman he loved, with the truth on the table between them, and he chose the other thing. He said his mother had sacrificed everything for this family. He said the trust was technically family money, and Grandma had been played on by sentiment. His mother's phrase, riding his voice, the way it had ridden my father's on the phone. He said June would be taken care of eventually, and that Elise was being, and I'm sorry, but he said it, dramatic. He told an accountant she was being dramatic about $102,000 missing dollars. Elise looked at him and, this is the detail that broke me, because I've photographed 300 grooms, and I know what men's hands do when they're lying to themselves. She said Grant was straightening the silverware while he talked, lining up the fork, the knife, squaring them to the table edge, making one small rectangle of the world make sense while the rest of it went to sea. She took off the ring at their kitchen table. She set it by the fork. You're not marrying me Saturday, she told him. You're marrying her. You've been marrying her your whole life. I'm just the venue. Then she drove to my house, the house that wasn't on the list, and sat with the people who weren't polished enough, and cried for the length of exactly 1 cup of tea. And then she stopped crying, opened her laptop, and forwarded 14 files to Carol Bennett, with a subject line, I will love until I die. Documents. Whitmore. The wedding wasn't canceled that night, though. That's the strangest part. For 72 more hours, there was still, officially, a wedding. Because nobody in my family had told the guests, the vendors were half paid and holding, and my mother was still out there insisting the freeze was a clerical error her lawyer would fix by Friday. 300 letterpress invitations, 140 confirmed guests, a groom with no bride, a paid-for cake, and a mother of the groom dress hanging unpaid in a fitting room across town. Somebody was going to have to stand in front of all those polished people and say something, and on Thursday afternoon, my mother decided who, and put the whole thing on me. Thursday, the 16th of July, 2 days before the wedding date. The phone tree went out at 4 in the afternoon. My mother's oldest instrument, the one she's played since before group texts existed. The message, as it reached me third hand within the hour. The wedding has been postponed. A member of the family has taken vindictive legal action against Diane out of jealousy, and the family asks for privacy and prayers during this difficult time. A member of the family, vindictive, jealousy, prayers. My Aunt Lorna called at 5. My father's sister, a woman I genuinely like, who once drove 4 hours to bring me soup after June was born. She was gentle about it, which somehow made it worse. Honey, whatever's going on between you and your mom, 2 days before the wedding, there were other ways, and I made a decision on that phone call that I stuck to all the way through, so I'll say it here, as plainly as I said it to her. I was not going to run a counter-campaign. I was not going to forward bank statements to aunts. My mother had spent 20 months building a paper version of me. A signature that took money, a jealous daughter who wrecked a wedding, and the temptation to grab the family megaphone and fight for the real one was enormous. But megaphones were her instrument. I'd seen where the truth was headed, and it was headed somewhere better than a phone tree. So I told Lorna one thing, 12 words. Ask Mom why the bank froze the trust. Then call me back. Silence, then. What trust? Exactly, I said, and wished her good night. Here's what my mother forgot about polished people. They have lawyers, too, and they ask follow-up questions. Friday morning, Elise's parents sent their own note to their own guest list. 100 of the 140. 2 sentences, no theatrics, announcing that their daughter had ended the engagement and that they were grateful for everyone's kindness. No privacy requested, no prayers. Now the town had two official stories, and they couldn't both be true. Postponed out of jealousy versus the bride walked. And when two stories fight in a small town, people don't pick the loudest one. They pick the one that explains the other. The bride's version explained everything. Why the florist was calling around about an unpaid balance. Why the venue, non-refundable after July 1st, $22,000 of deposits, gone like breath on glass, had quietly reopened the date. Why the mother of the groom had been seen at a bank branch on Thursday, raising her voice at a 26-year-old assistant manager, who kept repeating, with the serenity of a man reading from a laminated card, that he could not discuss an account under a court hold. By Sunday, the day after what should have been the wedding, the phone tree had gone dead quiet. Not one call, to me, or I later learned, from her. There is a specific silence that forms around a woman like my mother when her audience starts checking its own math. She had spent 30 years being the family's broadcaster. Nobody had ever told her that a broadcaster is just a person alone in a booth. The second people changed the station. I spent that Saturday, the wedding day that wasn't, at the lake with Caleb and June. I'm telling you this because of one moment. June, waist-deep, goggles on her forehead, stopped mid-splash and said, "Was today the wedding?" And I said, "It was going to be." She looked at the water for a second, working something out. "Is Uncle Grant sad?" "Probably, Bug." She nodded, filed it, splashed on. But at dusk in the car, half asleep in her booster with lake hair, she said to the window, "Grandma said people would ask questions about me." A beat. "What's wrong with questions about me?" "Nothing, baby. Nothing on this earth. I'm going to move now through what the next 2 weeks did to my family, and you're going to notice something. I'm not in most of it. That's not modesty. That's the actual shape of what happened. I filed 2 things, an accounting petition and a removal request, and I declined 1 job. That's the complete list of everything I did. Everything else was math, coming home. Monday, the 20th. The document examiner's preliminary report landed. Bennett had put an examiner on standby the same day. I disavowed the signatures, paid the rush fee out of the trust, which is standard practice, and which I choose to find poetic. 6 signatures, and the examiner's conclusion in the language they use, which is somehow colder than any insult. It is highly probable the questioned signatures were not executed by the known writer, and were executed by a single alternate writer. A single alternate writer. The report ran comparisons, pen lifts, letter forms, those tight closed O's, against exemplars the court had ordered produced. One set of exemplars came from checks, another came, and I did not ask for this, from 17 years of birthday cards I'd photographed for Bennett on my kitchen table in 20 minutes, because it turns out I keep everything, and it turns out a habit of documentation is a terrible thing to aim a fraud at. Friday the 24th, the status hearing. I sat in the second row of a beige courtroom between Caleb and Bennett, and I watched a probate judge read my daughter's name off the caption. In re, the Hale Family Trust, F.B.O. June, Linden, out loud, correctly, into the record, exactly as I'd asked. My mother sat at the respondent's table, next to a lawyer she'd hired on Tuesday, a man who kept touching her arm to stop her talking, and failing at it. The judge had the accounting. The judge had the examiner's preliminary findings, with the full report to follow. The judge had, thanks to a 14-file email, with the subject line, Documents, Whitmore, a gift letter in my mother's handwriting describing trust assets as a family gift with no expectation of repayment. It took 40 minutes. Diane Prewitt was removed as trustee of the Hale Family Trust, effective immediately, an institutional successor to be appointed. Surcharge proceedings were set. Repayment of $102,600, plus interest, personal liability. And then the judge did the thing Bennett had prepared me for in a hallway 30 seconds earlier. He looked at the examiner's report one more time and said the questioned document findings warranted referral to the district attorney's office, and directed the clerk accordingly. My mother made a sound I'd never heard from her. Not a sob, a syllable, half a no, that her lawyer's hand on her arm cut off. And for 1 second, across that beige room, she turned and found me. I want to be honest about what was in that look, because I've developed a policy about honesty in rooms full of paper. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't even anger quite. It was the look of a woman doing arithmetic again and finding the same impossible number. Except the number wasn't dollars anymore. It was witnesses. Every polished person she'd built her life for was going to hear about this room. She'd spent June's inheritance buying an audience. The court had just given her one. Outside, on the courthouse steps, Bennett put on her sunglasses and said, "You should know that the DA referral is a process, not an event. Could be months, could resolve with restitution and a deferred disposition, given her age and the repayment. Prosecutors weigh those." She looked at me. "How do you feel about that?" Everyone kept asking me how I felt. My aunt, Caleb, now Bennett. So I'll tell you what I told her, on the steps, in the July heat. She sat in her car for 19 minutes once, counting what she'd spent, I said. "I don't need a jail cell. I need June's money where Grandma put it, and I need every single person my mother performs for to know exactly what the performance cost and who paid for it. The rest is the state's business, not mine." Bennett looked at me for a second over the sunglasses. "Adele used to say things like that," she said, and walked to her car. That evening, a text from Tyler. No emoji this time. 4 words. "You happy now? Mom's destroyed." I didn't answer. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I'd learned the family truth by then. My silence did more honest work in their heads than my sentences ever had. And anyway, he had somewhere to be that week. The surcharge order named beneficiaries of trust funds, and the first certified letters were already moving. One to a man with a glossy black coupe he'd paid $14,000 cash for, and one to a man whose mortgage lender had just received, from an underwriting department, doing its routine litigation sweep, a very simple question about the source of his down payment. The coupe went up for sale that Saturday. The house fell out of escrow on Monday. And on Monday night, my mother came to my porch. She came at dusk, which she would tell you was when she happened to be driving by, and which I will tell you is the hour with the most forgiving light. She was in full armor, pressed slacks, good earrings, hair done, and she stood at the bottom of my porch steps, holding nothing. No bakery box this time. We were past croissants. June was in the bath. Caleb was up there with her, doing the shampoo mohawk routine, and I could hear the far-off giggling through the window screen. Which matters, because it was the soundtrack under everything my mother said next. "I hope you're proud," she opened. I stood at the top of the steps and held my tea and let that one go by. "Do you know what you've done to this family? Elise is gone. Your brother's house is gone. Tyler is selling his car. His car? Andrea. He loved that car. Your father can't sleep. I have a lawyer now. Do you understand? A criminal lawyer at my age. Because my own daughter," her voice did the swoop it does, up into the register she uses for wronged. "Because my own daughter went to strangers with family matters." Family matters. I counted the tiles on my porch floor. 11. I'd learned this much by July. Let her empty the first magazine. She had 3 more sentences about what grandmother's sacrifice. One about my ingratitude going back to high school. And one, she is who she is, about how none of Elise's people would ever have known. That one, she said quieter, like it was the real wound. Not that she'd done it, that it had been seen. When she finally stopped, the bath upstairs had gone quiet too, that end-of-bath hush with towel sounds in it, and I gave my mother the entire contents of my heart, which by that night fit in 4 sentences. Mom, June's trust was $112,000. It's 9,400. Those are the only family matters I know about. It was always coming back. The minute Grant was settled, the minute the wedding. You couldn't give me 1 year of grace. You had my name, I said. You wrote my name 6 times. And there it was. The flinch. Everything else she could reroute. The money was family. The trust was sentimental. The freeze was vindictive. But the 6 signatures had no costume. And we both knew a licensed examiner was done pretending with her O's. She looked at me the way you look at a door that used to be a wall. Then she went where I knew she'd go, because it's where she always goes. Soft. She came up 1 step. I held you the night you were born, she said, tears arriving on schedule. And they were real. I want to be fair. Her tears are always real. That's the terrible engine of her. She is the victim of every room she's ever emptied. I'm your mother. Whatever you think I did, I don't think, Mom. I've read the statements. We can fix this in the family. You call Bennett Monday, tell her you found the forms, tell her you forgot signing. And she reached out and took my wrist. Mother warm, thumb on my pulse, like she was checking. I was still hers. And I will make this right. I swear it on my mother's grave, sweetheart. Everything back, every penny. But you have to stop them first. They listened to you. On my mother's grave. Adele's grave. She swore it on the woman she'd robbed. I looked down at her hand on my wrist. And I did the last thing I ever did, as the daughter who folds. I was gentle. I took her hand off my arm, the way you take a splinter out of a child. Slow, clean, done. I'm not going to lie to a judge for you, Mom. And you're not going to call here anymore. Anything you need to say to me goes through Ms. Bennett now. Andrea. Good night, Mom. I went inside and shut the door, and through it I heard the thing that finally made me put my back against the wood and close my eyes. Not crying, her heels. Brisk, even, composed, down my walk in the dark. A woman, already redrafting the story of this porch for whoever she could still get on the phone. Even now, even at the door of a criminal referral, my mother's first instinct was distribution. Upstairs, June padded out in her towel, hair in a soap-scented tangle, and asked who was here. Grandma, I said, because I don't lie to her. June considered that from inside the towel. Did she say sorry? 6 years old. Straight to the only question in the file. Not yet, Bug. Okay, she said, in her filing it voice, and went to get her pajamas. And I stood in the hallway, understanding that my daughter was keeping a ledger of her own, in whatever currency 6-year-olds keep them, and that on her ledger there was exactly one entry that would ever balance it, and no judge could order it produced. My father came the next morning, alone, which may be the bravest thing Roy Prewitt has done in 40 years. He came in old jeans, holding his ball cap in both hands like a hymnal, and he wouldn't come in, and he wouldn't sit. So we stood on the same porch, and my father, who at that point was on the hook too, because 2 of the 6 forged forms carried his signature as witness, a fact Bennett believed made him liable, and I believed made him something sadder. My father looked at his cap and said, I signed where she put my finger. Didn't read them. That's not an excuse. That's what I did. 40 years, Andrea. You sign where she puts your finger. It goes easier. He turned the cap over. I keep thinking about your grandma. She never once asked me to sign anything. She'd just look at you over that iced tea, like she was taking your picture. He cleared his throat, hard. I got a job. Parts counter at the Tractor Supply, Mondays through Thursdays. It's not much against what we owe the little one, but it's mine, and it goes to her, every check, until the number's right. 61 years old, first job in 8 years. Standing on my porch volunteering his paychecks to a first grader. Here's what I did with that, and you can judge me either way. I've made peace with it. I didn't absolve him. He signed. His silence had a payroll for 40 years, and my crossed-out husband and my crossed-out daughter were partly the bill for it. But there's a difference I'd learned to see that summer between the ones who draw the lines and the ones who just can't stand where it costs them anything. And my father, on that porch, was standing somewhere for the first time in my life, and it was costing him. So I told him the terms, not forgiveness, terms. Saturday mornings, I said. The library on 5th does a story time at 10. June and I are there most weeks. If you want to know your granddaughter, that's where she is. You come, you sit, you read when she hands you a book. You don't bring messages from mom. You don't discuss the case. First time you do, it's the last Saturday. My father looked at me for a second, and his eyes did something I'd been photographing at weddings for 10 years and had never once seen on him. 10 o'clock, he said, like a man memorizing coordinates. He was there that first Saturday, 3 days after the signing I'm about to tell you about. Back row, cap in his lap, terrified of the librarian. June brought him a book about a lighthouse. He read it twice. I'm not going to pretend that didn't cost me something to watch. It did. It also put a floor under something. You'll see why it matters. Because the very next morning after his porch visit, a Wednesday, everyone was summoned to Bennett's office to sign the settlement. All of them in one room. And what happened in that room is the reason I'm telling you this story at all. The morning of the signing, though, that's when June came downstairs with the butterfly jar. Wednesday, the 29th of July. The signing was set for 10 a.m. at Bennett's office. The settlement, the repayment schedule, the successor trustee paperwork, all of it. And the plan was simple. Caleb would drive me, June would come along with her backpack of car entertainment, and the second the ink dried, we'd go straight to the lake and stay until the light went. The night before, Caleb and I sat at the kitchen table after June's bedtime and went through it one more time, voices low, the numbers, who'd be in the room, what I would and wouldn't say. At some point, one of us, me, I think, said the sentence out loud. Grandma has to pay back June's money, all of it. Tomorrow she signs. We heard the stair creak too late. I don't know how long she'd been sitting up there in the dark, in her strawberry pajamas. Long enough. She didn't come down. By the time I got to the landing, she was back in bed. Or pretending, lashes doing that too still thing. And I let her keep the pretense, because 6-year-olds are entitled to their surveillance operations. At 7 the next morning, she came down dressed, hair half-brushed, backpack already on both shoulders like a paratrooper. She stood in the kitchen doorway and waited for me to notice her, which is her way when it's something big. Then she took out the butterfly jar and set it on the table with both hands, heavy, coins shifting, and pushed it toward me. It's $42 now, she said. It was for tickets before. Then it was going to be camera money. For a real one like yours, with the strap. She kept her eyes on the jar, tongue not between her teeth for once. But you said Grandma has to pay back all my money, or she's in trouble. So you can give her this part. From me. And then, in the smallest voice, the voice that took the floor out from under me. Then she's not in trouble as much, and maybe everybody can just go back. I want you to see it the way I had to. The child they crossed off the list. The child whose inheritance bought the car and the house and the string quartet. The child who heard herself called a problem on a pocket dial and threw her own congratulations card in the trash, so nobody would feel bad. That child stood in my kitchen, offering up her camera money, her one sovereign treasure, $42 of tooth fairy and couch cushions, to bail out the woman who erased her. They had taken $102,000 from her, and her response, age 6, was to try to give them more. Caleb turned and faced the sink. Big man, dock rope forearms, absolutely motionless over the dishes. I got down on the kitchen floor, eye level, the way Adele used to get eye level with me. Bug. That is the kindest thing anybody in this whole family has done all summer. Her chin came up a little. And the answer is no. Her chin wobbled. Grandma's trouble isn't a money problem. It's a choices problem and it's hers to fix. And grown-up judges are making sure she fixes it. Your job, I put both hands around hers, around the jar, is to be 6. And to buy a camera someday. That's the whole job. She studied me for a long moment. Is that the whole job? She repeated, checking the math. That's the whole job. Okay, she said, and took the jar back, and I thought we were done. I wanted on the record that I thought we were done. Because when she disappeared upstairs for 5 minutes before we got in the car, I assumed it was a bathroom trip. It was not a bathroom trip, but I didn't find that out until 11:40. Bennett's conference room, 10 a.m., cold air, long table, water. Nobody drank. They were all there when we walked in. My mother in beige and good earrings, flanked by her criminal lawyer. My father 1 seat apart from her in his church jacket. Grant, grayer around the mouth than a 32-year-old should be, alone at the end where a bride's family would have sat. Tyler slouched with his arms crossed, and I noticed a bus schedule folded in his shirt pocket, which nearly moved me to something until he opened his mouth. Caleb stayed in the lobby with June and her coloring book. She had her backpack in her lap. Remember the backpack. I'm not going to walk you through 45 minutes of lawyer procedure, because what the room was really doing had nothing to do with the exhibits. What the room was doing was watching my mother meet arithmetic. The schedule got read out loud. Grant, 38,000 secured, due on the unwinding of the gift, already in motion since the escrow collapse. Tyler, 14,000. The coupe had sold Tuesday for 9.5. He'd sign for the rest at 400 a month. My father's paychecks, entered as a voluntary offset. The lawyer's voice flat. My father nodding at every clause like each one was a pew he was helping carry. And the balance? The wedding, the reimbursements, the interest. Against Diane Prewitt personally, secured by a lien the length of her future. Twice my mother tried to convert the meeting. The first time, 2 minutes in. Before we begin, I just want to say as a family, and her own lawyer's hand landed on her wrist. The second time, at the signature page, pen in hand, she looked down the table at me and tried the register that had run my childhood. You know I would have given June the world. I was building the world she'd— Mrs. Prewitt, Bennett said, not loudly, the line for your signature is at the bottom. That was the whole exchange. I said almost nothing in that room, and I want you to know it wasn't strategy by then. It's that there was nothing left in me that wanted a turn. I'd spent 29 years auditioning for a speaking part in my mother's family, and somewhere between a trash can and a butterfly jar, I'd stopped wanting the role. I spoke once. When everything was signed and the successor trustee's appointment was confirmed, a bank's fiduciary office, gray and permanent, no aunts, no fingers on anyone's signature line, annual accountings to the court forever. I took 1 page of my own out of my bag and slid it to the middle of the table. Bennett had reviewed it. It wasn't a legal document. It was a boundary, typed 1 paragraph. All contact with me or my household through counsel. No unannounced visits. My father's Saturdays, continuing at my discretion. And 1 closing line I'd written at 2 in the morning and kept over Caleb's gentle doubts, because it was the truest sentence I had. When June is 21, she receives the full accounting, every page, and she'll know exactly who did what, because the record will tell her, not me. My mother read that line. I watched her lips move on, because the record will tell her. For 30 years, she had owned this family's record, written it, edited it, broadcast it, crossed names out of it. And the last line of my page informed her that the record had a new custodian now, a courthouse, and that no phone tree on this earth could recall a court file. Her pen was still in her hand. She looked for 1 long second, like a woman at a counter hearing declined. Then it was over, chairs back, lawyers stacking paper, and we all funneled out into the lobby, into the 11:40 light, where my daughter sat next to Caleb, with her coloring book closed on her lap and her backpack unzipped. My mother saw her and became instantly grandma. It's a thing I can't explain to people who haven't lived with it. The costume change, faster than thought. She crossed the lobby, crouching already, arms opening, voice arriving ahead of her like perfume. There's my girl. Oh, sweetheart. Grandma has missed you so much. It's been a hard summer for Grandma. But one day when you're big, you'll understand how much. June stood up. She didn't take a step back, and she didn't take a step in. She reached into her backpack with both hands, and she took out the lavender dress. Folded. She'd folded it herself. You could tell, the fold was earnest and wrong, a 6-year-old's flag ceremony. And I understood, standing 10 feet away with my heart going sideways, what the 5 minutes upstairs had been. She'd packed it herself, told no one, carried it through the whole morning, past the jar, past the coloring book, waiting. She held it out to her grandmother at the end of both arms. This is yours, June said. Clear, not loud, Adele's iced tea calm, 2 generations later. You can give it to a girl who's on the list. The lobby went silent the way the dining room had gone silent in June. Except this time, no candle popped and no one moved at all. My mother stayed crouched, arms still half open, for the hug that wasn't coming. Face to face with the entire summer, delivered in 14 words by the smallest person she'd ever crossed out. She took the dress. There was nothing else in the world for her arms to do. June picked up her coloring book, put her hand in Caleb's, and said in her regular voice, the 6-year-old one, Daddy, is it lake time now? And while my mother knelt there in the lobby, holding a folded flower girl dress, Bennett stepped past her. This is the part I didn't arrange, couldn't have, wouldn't have dared, and handed her lawyer the last envelope of the morning. The conformed copies of the orders, and clipped to them, delivered to counsel as of that morning, a letter of inquiry from the district attorney's office, Financial Crimes Unit, requesting a conference regarding the referred findings in Intre the Hale Family Trust. The state arriving on schedule in a lobby at lake time. Bennett saved my envelope for last. She walked us to the elevator, and only when Caleb and June had stepped in did she put it in my hand. My name across the front, in backward-leaning, left-handed scrawl. The trust business, she said, is finished. I read it in the car, in the passenger seat, while Caleb drove us to the lake with the windows down, and June narrated a coloring page in the back. My grandmother, 2.5 years dead, in blue ink. Andrea, if Carol's given you this, then something needed finishing, and you finished it. I'm sorry, child. I knew what my daughter was. I knew it when I wrote the will. I gave her the trusteeship because a mother hopes to the last page, and I told Carol to watch, because a mother also reads the earlier pages. Don't carry what she did. It was never yours to carry. Now the important part. You have spent your whole life on the wrong side of the camera, girl, taking everyone's picture, waiting your turn to be looked at. I'm telling you what I should have said over the iced tea. I was looking the whole time. I saw who set up chairs and who sat in them. I saw who you married. Keep that one. And I saw what you made of an old dented Canon and $17 of film. Somebody in every family does the seeing, but somebody ought to see her back. The Canon's still in my cedar chest, top shelf. It goes to the little one when she's ready. Teach her what I taught you. The camera doesn't care what people say. I didn't cry at the courthouse, or the porch, or the signing. I cried on Route 9 with the windows down, holding a letter in 2 steady hands, while my husband drove and put his palm on the back of my neck, and said nothing at all, because he's the one who watches me walk across a room like I'm the news. From the back seat, June's voice, mildly interested. Mama, are you happy crying or sad crying? Both, Bug, both. A year later, give or take a season, here is where everybody landed. I'll go around the table the way my mother used to serve. Oldest first, no skipping. My mother lives in the same house with a lien on it the length of her future. The district attorney's conference happened in the fall. Her lawyer negotiated what they call a deferred disposition. Full restitution on a schedule, supervision, and if every payment lands for 4 years, no trial. Her criminal lawyer called it a mercy. Her bank calls it a garnishment. She resigned from the church events committee before they could vote on it, and the phone tree runs fine without her, which may be the sentence that actually landed. 3 afternoons a week she works at a consignment boutique on Miller Street, where her job, I'm not inventing this, the universe has a handwriting all its own, is steaming and pressing other women's formal wear. Gowns, mother of the bride dresses. She handles them beautifully, I'm told. She was always excellent with appearances. Every month on the 1st, the trust's new custodian logs a payment received. A bank officer I've never met files it. A court I'll never visit again records it. And my daughter's inheritance climbs back toward itself, one garnished paycheck at a time, no phone tree required. The system my mother ignored for 20 months now thinks about her every 30 days. It never raises its voice, and it never, ever forgets. She spent her life being the loudest thing in every room. She is now answerable to the quietest thing in this county, and it has a filing number. My father works the parts counter Mondays through Thursdays and has not missed a single Saturday story time since last summer. He knows the librarian's name now. He does the foghorn voice in the Lighthouse book, which he has read to June upwards of 30 times, because she hands it to him on purpose to watch him do the voice. His paychecks go where he said they'd go. We don't talk about the case, per the terms. Last month he stayed for pancakes after, and June taught him her handshake, and I watched my father memorize it like coordinates. Grant lives in a one-bedroom across town and is repaying his share on schedule. The house never happened. The wedding never resurrected. In April, he mailed me an actual letter, paper, stamp, and it wasn't his mother's voice for once. It said, among other things, I straighten silverware, while she told me the truth. I think about that every day. I've read it twice. I haven't answered yet. Some doors you don't lock. You just leave them on the latch and see what a person does with a long quiet. Elise, for the record, is in Chicago. Promoted, thriving, exactly as polished as advertised. She sent June a birthday card with a girl detective book inside and signed it, Your Friend E. We talk every couple of months. The subject line of her life remains excellent. Tyler rides the bus, works a warehouse job with a forklift certification he claims to hate and secretly brags about, and has not missed a payment. $400 a month, on time, silent. No apology, no conversation, no emoji. I've decided that's his mother tongue and stopped waiting for translation. The coop belongs to a dentist now. And June. June turned 7 in March, and on her birthday morning, there was a cedar-smelling box on the table. The dented cannon, retrieved from Adele's chest, strap and all. She wears it the way other kids wear a favorite necklace. She shoots the dog, Puddles, the mailman, her own feet, my face from below while I cook. Last week, she lined up her stuffed animals and took each one's portrait individually. Because, and she explained this to me with great patience, everybody gets their own picture, Mama, not just the fancy ones in front. Then she said, the thing I'm going to be carrying for the rest of my life. She was looking through this viewfinder at the dog, and she said, absolutely offhand, the way children hand you the whole point of everything. When I grow up, I'm going to take pictures of the people nobody remembers to take pictures of. Like you, Mama, you never get to be in them. The butterfly jar sits on her dresser, retired at last. $42, untouched. She says it's her assistant's salary for when she hires one. Last Sunday it was July again. A year and a few weeks since a schedule slid across the tablecloth, and we were at the lake through the gold part of the evening. Caleb waist-deep with June on his shoulders, cottonwoods letting go of their fluff, the water doing that late light thing where every ripple runs copper. June paddled ashore, dripping, seized the cannon off the towel, and ordered the two of us together like a tiny wedding coordinator. Then she balanced the camera on the cooler, set the timer the way I'd taught her, and sprinted back to wedge herself between us, soaking, laughing, yelling at the sky. Everybody in, even you, Mama, especially you. Click. That picture's on our wall now, crooked horizon and all. First family photo I've been inside of in 11 years. My grandmother was right about cameras. They don't care what people say. They care who showed up. And we are all three of us in the frame, sunburned and unlisted and free. And the summer went on past the edges of it in every direction. Some seasons end in a courtroom, the good ones end at a lake. Before you go, it's still me. Just Andrea now, no schedule, no list. I've had a year to think about what that summer was actually about. And here's the smallest true version I've got. Being useful to your family is not the same as being loved by them. And it took a bullet blue ballpoint line through my daughter's name for me to finally read the difference. And this too. When somebody crosses your name off a list, they think they're telling you what you're worth. They're not. They're telling you what they are. The names they cross out are the truest thing they'll ever write. So now I want to hear yours. Were you the free labor in your family? The one with the camera, the casserole, the spare bedroom, the checkbook? The one who showed up and got cropped out? What was your crossed out name? And what did you finally do about it? Tell me in the comments. I mean it. I read every single one, usually at the kitchen table with coffee, while a 7-year-old photographs my elbow. And your stories are half the reason I keep telling mine. And if this one found you on a night you needed it, stay close. There's another story waiting, and you're on the list for that one. You always were. Thanks for listening. Good night from the three of us at the lake.